Welcome back to another episode of Sleepy Hollow, the missing episodes. Last time, Leon Lucas was actually discovered, who happens to be Gavin Lucas's ancestor. And it turns out that Leon Lucas has actually given Gavin the virtue of fortitude, which was passed down not through his bloodline, but straight to him. And Gavin has dealt with a vengeful spirit who was lost in time and was afraid of the final judgment. Thanks to his new friend's convenience, especially with Ichabod, he was able to reunite with his family and his loved ones waiting for him in the heavens. He was afraid he might not be worthy of going there, but he did, and it restored Gavin. Meanwhile, we see a disheveled man who's approaching Sleepy Hollow. Who is he? Well, let's find out in this chapter, which I'm sure you already know who he is. So, here we are. Chapter 5, Hawley Returns. Geez, last chapter I came up with was back in January 31st, and this I came with June of last year. Well, actually, it was back in like 2017-ish. So a certain someone returns to Sleepy Hollow, a person that I just despise so much and want gone. The creator's pet Nick Hawley appears again. This time I'd resolved a huge plot hole he left back in Season 2. He was one of those things that soiled the series, aside from Katrina and Henry Parrish. He really needs to go. This time, for good. Again, TV tropes mention that. It was nearing the end of spring break. Gavin and Jenny were at the same diner where Abby and August hung out in a few years back. While they were sharing fries, with Jenny having the majority since she was a fry lover like her sis, they were discussing on what to do about Ichabod's predicament. Man, you really are a fry muncher. I guess it runs in the family, Gavin muttered while munching on cheese fries. He'd rather have them smothered with either melted cheese or chili, or at least dipped in a condiment instead of eating them regularly. Have you found a solution for Ichabod's deal yet? Well, the one thing I can say is probably the most effective. Crane may need to convert to a religion of sorts. Gavin wasn't really the religious type. So that means he has to worship Jesus or the Virgin Mary? Being that I have the virtue of faith, I suppose this is the best method. Well, we can't protect him 24/7. There must be an alternative aside from the 7 virtues. That's why I'm hoping for my employees to find a sacred object to do justice. A holy relic of some kind. He looked at her quizzically. Jenny, you can always find a holy relic. There are some crosses around, I'm sure. Not the cross, Gavin. I was thinking of the first ever cross for Crane, the one that's genuine and had some of Christ's blood encrusted on it. The one that was so powerful it's able to overcome any form of evil, even Lucifer himself. There was this legend of Dante Alighieri and his beloved Beatrice who gave it to him before he descended into hell. Oh yeah, I know about that. It took place during the Dark Ages. I've played a game about it and saw the movie that was bundled with it. I'm still trying to comprehend the poem, though. That cross helped the Crusader defeat the devil and restore Beatrice after she became his own wife. If we could just find it, it may be the key we're looking for. I know it's potent enough to lift Crane from his dire ordeal. He eventually walked away from Jenny after a happy talk about how much they really liked each other, how far they've come. While he headed to the restroom, he then bumped into an unexpected visitor, sitting at a different table. Both men gasped, and they glanced at each other for a few seconds. The stranger was actually Nick Hawley. Not you again! The young surgeon put his hands on his hips and confronted him. You! What the hell are you doing here? Heh! My, aren't you the inconsiderate one, Gavin? As always. Still hating me after the benevolent things I've done for you, Jenny, Crane, and Abby. I only came here to finish what I started. For your information, Abby is dead. Pandora and the Hidden One got to her over a year ago, and Ichabod went to Washington to find a new witness. You always are sneaky and receive a lot of gossip. You should know about this. Hawley stood and marched up to his rival, towering over him by a few feet. Oh, yeah? And where is he now? Before they got into a fight in the middle of an aisle between other hungry patrons, Jenny broke them off and was also shocked to see him. Hawley? Jenny, thought I'd never see you again, faced her with a gleam in his eye. Hey, she's not here to flirt with you, Hawley. Haven't you gotten enough women to do that? We have a mission to do. Yeah, let's go. We need to talk. As she brought both Fume's men back to her table, Nick explained he wanted to go to the Jeffersonian to get a collie statue to draw and slay Carmilla, whom he spotted in the nation's capital while in his old yacht. Jenny volunteered to bring Hawley to Washington while also helping him retrieve his statue, even if she had to assist him on breaking through high-tech surveillance. Carmilla may be luring you into a trap. I remembered how crafty she was. After a brief flashback, she decided, all right, I'll take you to Washington in my camper, but I'm going to keep a close, keen eye on you. He accepted while Gavin would want to stay out. He refused to go with him there. So, as Jenny and Hawley walked off as two reunited close buddies, he irritably punched in a number and called his friends on his cell outside the diner. Hey, it's me. You guys aren't going to believe what just happened. Although, Ichabod, Jenny, and I know who he is. Then, as the call ended, he walked solemnly toward the hotel they were staying in. The team, including Molly, awaited him in the lobby. Ichabod spoke up. Gavin, is it true Hawley has returned to Sleepy Hollow? Yeah, it is true. After the talk, the quintet decided to go to Washington and follow Hawley and Jenny to the Jeffersonian. Crane was a bit more enthusiastic since he'd never been there after he and Abby first met the forensic scientists Booth and Brennan. They know they all knew it'd be serious, especially if they may come across the Vetala again. I just love the Bones crossover. On both sides. They did a fantastic job. Wish we could do this again. He decided to drive the sergeant to his apartment where he can gather his weapons while Diana drops Molly off at her house and Laura, who was guarding over the vault, would head off with them. During the drive in his Indigo Durango, Gavin discussed about his probable solution on reversing his curse as Jenny's employees try to get the Holy Cross that Dante and Beatrice once possessed. Though the Freemason was impressed about the reference of the Italian epic, and he felt there'd be a good chance to no longer be damned, they had their doubts on where to find it. When in Rome? Or Italy? They wondered. Gavin almost forgot to mention the Jeffersonian was bombed over a month ago. Ichabod and Diana recalled seeing a news break about it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make any contact with survivors, including Booth and Brennan, due to confidentiality purposes. Which is actually the Bones series finale. Not too crazy about it, but Thankfully, they were alright, despite Brennan's brain trauma and amnesia. He found out that they both retired and construction had been discontinued, making the museum an easy target. Meanwhile, Laura discussed about the monster they were dealing with as she scavenged through the vault files while taking via a cellular. Listening to it on Ichabod's hands-free gizmo, it turned out Hawley was off to find the Vajrayogini statue of Kali, which was displayed as a sketch in a tablet. The Indian god was the polar opposite of Shiva, and it was known to be a deity of merciless destruction, time, change, and power. Thank you for traumatizing me, Temple of Doom. The artifact in particular was the cause to not draw a Vetala, but to actually make more of its kind instead of being the cure, which was once misbelieved. I just hate the season 2 episode Kali Yuga. Hate it. Gavin and Ichabod were already aware of that fact, but the surgeon was hardly paying attention as he gave an empty stare. The witness said the Vetala was an undead human being of Hindu lore that serves Kali, who was named as the goddess of death and regeneration. Laura went on as the Vetala appears to be human unless provoked, as they have long sharp fangs that has venom to cause paralysis, blackout with ringing ears, and weakened strength. Almost like that dinosaur from Jurassic Park, the Dilophosaurus. Ichabod mentioned the telltale sign of a Vetala was an X-shaped scar in a certain part of the body. Female witness described they have blue snake-like eyes. It could be enticing to look at while in human form. Aside from the access to spot, the markings on their bodies are similar to a vampire's, and much like them, they feed on blood. They also possess super strength and enhancing hearing. They attack in pairs and are never alone. They're willing to sacrifice themselves for their master, and their loyalty is strong, like a family's or a close friend's. Hawley could be one to Pines. Both a former history professor and his associate said the godmother of Nick Hawley was Pines, and any person such as him could be turned into a Vetala using an artifact called the Statue of Kali, and by reciting an ominous chant. Laura said it was possible that Pines had exposure to the statue and later did Hawley, since she's known as a vengeful spirit that can possess super speed, indestructibility, and regenerating. She can, however, be killed by silver knives, like the demon slayer Delilah's dagger, and also open flames. The duo remembered using iron tips of Ichabod's signature crossbow and Abby's lighter, but she escaped. Laura figured the only way is to destroy the statue, leaving her vulnerable, and make their move directly. Plus, cauterization would also be key. By the time they arrived at the vault, Ichabod, Laura, and Gavin told Alex, Diana, and Jake about their past encounters, since they never knew Hawley nor his guardian. She first killed a man in Miami, and then she raised Nick when he was 12 as his godmother. The two, along with Jenny and Abby, first met Hawley around the same time as Jenny got exposed to a Judas coin. Gavin remembered Ichabod mocking him as a privateer, especially after his lousy motivation, while the men and the witnesses were searching for the Pied Piper and his 10-year-old victim. Yeah, you said so in your journal, Gavin. That was when you lost your temper over Sarah Lancaster's mom and harbored bitter feelings for Hawley. We all did, excepting Jenny, who still had feelings for him, especially since Ichabod labeled him as such. He was pretty much right. Even though he saved Abby's life from drowning in a library, which was when Ichabod observed CPR, Gavin still saw him as a worthless. He even couldn't stand to be near him while they were charged to watch over the imprisoned horsemen of death during Moloch's breakthrough. Hawley seemed very courageous and helpful, but he's turned on not just by the paranormal, but also women and money. He flirted with many girls, even the succubus. At one time at the Knox Vault during a Mexican standoff with Pines, Hawley asked to let the witnesses go in exchange for his services instead of attacking his soon-to-be hostage, Jenny, who was unwavering love interest. Even still, he wasn't able to persuade Abby's heart, though. Thus, this might state her influence, the Vitala's influence over him. Since Carmela's escape and in order to redeem herself, he left Sleepy Hollow for a couple years on his journey to find and kill Pines. However, he actually became a victim to Pines, and the Kali statuette is the driving force of their menace. So, if we don't hurry, that means, Ichabod reassured him as if he's reading his mind. Do not fret, Gavin. We won't let Miss Jenny become the next victim. Being that Hawley was an expert of the supernatural, Team Witness knew it would be a daunting task, especially since he's ready, willing, and able to defend Carmilla, even if it costs his own life. As if the Kraken's influence wasn't bad enough. Laura strategized she could use her Atlantean crystals to slow her down. It's quite fortunate since Hawley and Pines don't know who they're dealing with this time around, nor would they expect a talented, well-coordinated warrioress from the distant dystopian future. In addition, the virtues may give us a chance as well, which means it means we must stick together. When the seven symbols unite, evil beware of its plight. As soon as Crane started the phrase, their backs of their hands lit up with that seven-sided crystal. Trigato's advice rang in their ears, and he promised, "His word shall not be in vain." Since silver knives were super effective, Pokemon for the win, Alex decided to forge replicas of Delilah's dagger. She gladly gave the original to Laura, and the team prepared themselves while Jenny parked her camper in a distant small patch of woods. "Why are we stopping here, Hawley?" "I just need to get something from my yacht, which should be close by. Follow me." The trek was less than a mile toward the lake. He climbed in and took out two outfits belonging to carpenters. They consisted of a pair of yellow hats. "Where did you get these, Hawley?" "Oh, I figured we needed a disguise to slip through the construction site. It's not occupied as of yet. Good thing I got a bargain on these." "I hope it's the right size." Her overalls and boots were snug against her body, and the hard hat was uncomfortable as it was nearly squeezing her scalp. "I guess." As soon as they donned on their disguises, they pressed onward. They came across an empty site as soon as they smelt fresh sawdust. They marched onto thick pillars of wood. Stakes were poking out of the ground floor for the walls. Some slanted pillar upward to form triangular and dome-like ceilings. They hardly noticed the empty cranes and trucks surrounding the perimeter. Little did they know that within the machinery, each of the construction workers were sleeping on the job, stained with blood. Leading the way, Hawley found a shaded pit, and they descended into the abandoned catacombs. Some of the debris were cleared out, showing some artifacts that were both broken and intact from Kovac's blast. Again from the Bones finale. As soon as he saw the Kali statuette in the center of all the rubble, Hawley grew fascinated with it, as if he felt he drew power from the goddess of chaos just as soon as he saw it standing proudly in the center. It was as if someone set it there for easy retrieval this whole time. "I can't believe we made it this far without meeting the Vetala again." Jenny actually wished Gavin and Crane were here. "Or so you have." A woman wearing a long, tight fuchsia dress emerged from the shadows. She immediately lunged at Jenny, digging her purple black nails into her neck. Holly just stood there, much to Jenny's dismay. Pines lowered her dress, revealing her slim back with an enormous letter X, showing shining sharp fangs. Blood trickled down from Jenny's neck, and she just stared at Holly in horror. "It was all a trap! Holly, why?" She was shell-shocked by the impact and her paranoia. Then it came to her. "You're one of them, aren't you?" The treasure hunter casually laid a hand on the illuminating statue. "Lucky guess," wiggling his tongue as forked as he himself hissed. There was the same dark teal X on his forehead. "Blood ties are fairly important. I learned from the best, remember? From my dear godmother, Carmilla. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I am now. I reckon this was my true calling after my parents died in that car crash, when she raised me as her own son. Now I'm glad to return her favor." Still crouching to her victim, Pines took in the praise. Blood is thicker than anything in existence, as is family. I'm so glad you've returned to your senses and found your identity." "Indeed I have." Just then his face wrinkled as his teeth changed into razor-sharp pointed fangs. Jenny was even more frightened. "I should be the one for you, Jenny, as I have been almost all your life. You had a tragic one, have you? Always being cooped up in that mental asylum, and for falling for your sister and your partner Joe. You shan't live in despair no longer, for you will have a brand new life, returning to my side and having power, corruption, hunger for it, and an undying loyalty to me. You will have it soon enough. The transition will be quick and painless. Carmilla knocked the hat off, which actually got the wind out of her. Hawley, my son, activate the statue and perform the ritual. Your loved one shall be one of us. She bit down hard on the wound. He knelt down as he made an incantation. She tried to break free, but she was losing energy by the minute, and her vision was growing darker. Camilla's ears perked like a dog's. Hawley, we got company. Jenny! Sure enough, it was Gavin with his iron arm blades drawn. His mentor arrived beside him with his crossbow and a flaming dart. Ah, Gavin and Crane, you boys are just in time. Hawley, what has become of you? I knew you were greedy and cocky, but why this? It was my mission to look for Carmilla in order to find redemption, but she gave me a new, more promising promotion. You should know this since you've wanted and have failed to meet your family's expectations. You bastard! Then he stared at Jenny's helpless body being sucked by pines like a ravenous leech. Let her go, or you'll pay! I've been longing to rid the likes of you. Try as you might, you can't stop us! As he ran to the pair, the surgeon dove in and tackled him to the floor, pinning and forcing them away from her. His power of suggestion failed to convince them. Ichabod fired the dart, but it missed Carmilla by a hair as she used her speed to make the illusion she teleported behind him. She smacked him and he went down. Then Alex, Jake, and Diana came into the fray while Gavin and Hawley were still rolling around. With his new strength, Hawley managed to crush Gavin's arms beneath him. He tried to move him, but it was like being weighed by intense gravity. Finding what he needed, he kicked him in the groin, stunning the beast. He smacked him a few times across the face as if it was being caned. However, it was proven ineffective as Hawley sneered while his damaged skin became whole. So you can regenerate! The trio tried to get Carmilla off Ichabod, but her body remained firm. Then Alex took out and stabbed her in the back with one of her Delilah dagger replicas. However, her loss of blood was temporary, as her sleek back concealed the wound. It was enough for the Freemason to break free, though. In a blink of an eye, Carmilla seamlessly knocked everyone down with immense speed, one after another. The same with Hawley to Gavin. Suddenly there was a sound of glass being shattered, and thick blue mist covered the ruined battlefield. Laura was the last of the group, and her Atlantean crystal slowed down the flow of time temporarily. She soon ran toward the Kali statue and stabbed it with the original blade, deactivating its luster and spell. She made it toward Carmilla and did the same infliction to her heart. From the wall she plucked out the dart with delicacy and ignited the main Vetala's decayed vessel just before the gem's abilities wore off. Carmilla squealed in agony, and Gavin found his chance from restored mindless sleep. It's either her or you! He took out the demon slayer. Just then Ichabod stopped him as his left arm burned. No, Gavin! He had a vision of a hellhound dragging his powerless body by his bleeding, ripping legs, and he said Gavin's fate could lie in the fifth circle wrath for his hatred towards Hawley. He recalled an earlier account when the pentagram glowed and burned with his service for the Kraken, noticing the heart devil. Gavin backed down, which gave Hawley the chance to recover and storm toward Jenny. No! Gavin was desperate to save her, although someone else had the upper hand. Laura finished the job as she threw the dagger straight into Hawley's heart. Now, Gavin! He did as he was told when he ignited him with his lighter, and he went down and crumbled like a ton of wet rocks, just like Carmilla. Gavin caught his breath as he felt shocked that his soul would be claimed by the Hellhound and taken to the Wrath Ring. I can't believe this. Is my soul really going to be damned like yours? Ichabod looked at his arm again. The pentagram never ignited when he lighted Hawley like a Christmas tree. I suppose not. You've done this out of protection than anger. All because you've landed the final blow. Although his heart clenched of the fact that a brave warrior that had fallen into darkness was gone, he embraced the weakened Jenny for comfort. Oh, Gavin, have I been infected? No, you haven't. But Hawley and Pines are gone. She lowered her head in sadness. Close to tears, he apologized profusely and killing him with Laura, though it was the only way to save her. After listening to it, she actually confessed she was so young, stupid, and naive to fall for him. She thought they'd have something in common since they were both into artifacts, and at the time when she had bitter resentment for Abby, he was the only person she could count on while being caged at Tarrytown. Ichabod walked over and she put her arms around him, saying that it wasn't her fault, and letting Hawley be manipulated by his lethal legal guardian. By the time she calmed down and began to slur, Ichabod and Gavin began to lift her on their shoulders. "Where's your camper?" Diana said she saw the tire tracks enter a small forest less than a mile back. She then reported the constructor's missing bodies. The yacht along with its goodies would be sold to the highest bidder, but it would only be for charity. Alex made this idea since she wielded the virtue. When they finally got to the camper, and with a stroke of luck when her key slipped out of her pocket, Gavin unlocked the door while Ichabod carried her and laid her down gently on a bed. She was down on her back, and he ordered Gavin to look for garlic. This was a close improvisation as a remedy to treat a Vetala wound, even though it was more of a vampire's. Ichabod washed the bite with soap and water. He advised it'll do nothing to stave off signs of infection, but may serve to prevent infection and calm down the bit victim. When Gavin gave him the garlic from the fridge, he diced it into small bits and wetted them along with a nearby washcloth. Then covered the area on her neck with a cool compressed rag soaked in garlic extract, which was designed to minimize swelling and vampirism. Yes, I know it burns. We'll take care of that. You'll be better in no time at all. After several quiet minutes, while they looked over Jenny and her vital signs, Gavin lectured with Ichabod. They were lucky her breathing and heart rate didn't drop, and eventually the irritations decreased. I've heard about the anger ring. Does that mean people will be damned if they possess these feelings? Ichabod applied a bandage that was wrapped 2 to 4 inches above the bite in order to help slow the spread. This cut off the flow of blood, and the band was loose enough to slip a finger under it. He used a suction device placed over the bite to draw the vampire's saliva out of the wound without making a scar. It all depends on how it is used, Gavin. Those that have repressed passive anger are submerged in the river Styx. Those that are actively aggressive remain on the surface. It is sinful to have an uncontrollable rage and to have a longing feeling of harm towards others. Gavin sulked, feeling that he once had those feelings for his own guardian Lolita, which you'll see in the Demon from Within. He laid a calm hand on his shoulder. It's all in the past now, Gavin. She's already been vanquished because of her rage, much like Carmilla. But in the future, you need to be self-aware in how you use that anger. However, since it was for protection to Miss Jenny, you can't be damned for your actions. Laura made the assault on him, as did you before she was irreversible. She'll be all right. I I hope so. Meanwhile, at a distant, desolate location, 4 enormous caskets rested on the forest floor. One of them had its lid open, and out popped a hand. It looked human, but his face was suited in a creepy steel mask. When it was removed moments later without using his hands, it revealed an elderly man wearing spectacles, a wrinkly, sinister face, and short gray hair. He responded, "At long last, I'm finally free from my resting place. Soon we will roam the earth and rule it with our true master. The hour of our reign and absolute annihilation shall commence in due time." Damn, it took me so long to write and finish this tricky, strenuous chapter. We now see one of our old adversaries make his next move. I'm sure you guessed who it is. Of course, this does have reference to one of my least favorite episodes of Season 2, Kali Yuga, whether it be the creator's pet Hawley having unfinished business with Vetala, her being his legal guardian, Camilla Pines, the troubled relationship between him and Jenny, the traps of Fort Knox, Abby keeping Orion's souvenir behind Ichabod's back. Ugh, I just hate it! Good freaking riddance to both of them. Ugh, hate it, I hate it, I hate it. I also made a reference to the finale of Bones. I wasn't a huge fan of the series, accepting that it had a neat crossover, but the Jeffersonian was mentioned in both terms. I can't be sure about the future of the Jeffersonian and the characters still, since I don't know the series well. So I kind of made this into a piece under construction that was discontinued instead. And yes, Supernatural is mentioned in Vetala, and without the info from the wiki, I'd be stuck. So, thanks? In TV tropes, one of the solutions to reverse the deal with the devil is to convert into religion. Although that is a good method, I still think there should be another way. From this moment on, I'm completely stuck on writer's block, which I was at the time. I've already written the climax, which I did back in March of 2017, which was before the F-Zero epic. So, yeah, I pretty much got it all set up. Let's hope I'll do these recitals in the future. Until then, this is the Ecron Writer signing out. Farewell, sleepyheads.